Buenas noches. Lo siento, mi español es muy malo y en inglés hablo demasiado rápido. Lo siento, I'll try to slow down. I was thinking about coming here and being in a room filled with hackers and entrepreneurs and innovators. I came to realize that though I get in trouble over the years for saying things that are heresy, I don't think I've been nearly radical enough. So in this group, I wanted to see how far I could go in being radical and proposing new ideas. Start here. We are not in the content business. We are not just storytellers. Journalism is a service. It is about helping communities improve themselves. We're doing a bad job of that. If all we think we do is fill products with content as a manufacturer, that's a Gutenberg era idea and it is over. It's okay, yeah. Next, attention corrupts. We're blaming the social platforms and Google and Facebook for ruining our world. Well, no, we ruined it first because our business model is about attention. Our business model is about grabbing your eyes and selling them to advertisers. We did that in media. Attention as a business model will lead inevitably to clickbait, to cats and Kardashian, and ultimately to Donald Trump, because he is the clickbait candidate. Attention as a business model is poison. We must find a new business model. Paywalls are not, that business model. There is a limit to how far we can go with paywalls. My fear with paywalls is that then news and journalism become the product for the wealthy. I looked for just 2 weeks at sites that wanted me to pay them, and I added up how much that was. In just 2 weeks, it added up to $3,600 a year. Sorry, I'm not going to pay all that. Everyone who thinks my content is so special, people must pay for it. No, there is a limit. It is not going to rescue us. Sorry, but the platforms have won. That's where the public is. The public is on Facebook, and it's on Twitter, and it's on YouTube, and it's on Instagram, and we have no choice as journalists but to go and take journalism to the public where they are. We cannot stand back and think, we're the destination. You must come to us for news. No, we have to take news to people where they are. To say that we are the destination is pure ego. The mass is dead. We built our business on the idea of the mass. The reason I'm a fan of Gutenberg, the reason I go to Mainz is to study what the Gutenberg era did to how we think of the world. And when the Gutenberg press was tied to steam and became the penny press, we invented the idea of the mass. Raymond Williams, the sociologist, says there are no masses, only ways of seeing people as masses. You're not a mass, but we in media still treat you as a mass. We give you one product, all the same for everyone. That is over. Gigantic Google knows me as an individual, my newspaper does not. And yeah, we can argue about tracking, we can argue about data, we can argue about a lot of things. But what the internet gives you is the opportunity to know people as individuals and members of communities, and not just as a mass. But we in mass media still insist on treating everyone all the same. And the result is people don't trust us, not nearly as much as we think. We talk a lot about restoring trust in media. Well, the truth is, in America, if you're African American, if you're Spanish-speaking American, if you're LGBTQ American, media never fully reflected you, media never fully served you, and you never fully trusted media. So the idea is not that we're trying to restore trust, we're trying to create trust and earn trust in the first place. And then we come to this. This is the former mayor of New York the attorney for the president, and I'm very sorry, lo siento for this, the president of the United States saying truth isn't truth. Nothing but the truth. That's what we believe, and now the thing that we care about most doesn't even exist. We're fucked! ¿Cómo se dice we're fucked en español? Gracias. Many ways to say we're fucked in español. So, what the fuck do we do about this? I say we must start over. We must, appropriate to the theme of this very conference, reinvent and rethink journalism. And you are the people to do that. I tell that to my students as well. So all I want to do in the time remaining before you go to dinner and I go to sleep is go through some of the things that I wish you innovators and hackers and entrepreneurs and inventors would explore. Not just new story forms, not just new ways to do what we've always done, but ways to reinvent journalism. So I'm going to give you a few examples from America, because that's what I know, and then go on from there. But I'm going to start here. In rethinking what journalism is, I start with this notion from James Carey, who's the late professor at Columbia, that republics, democracies, are conversation. And we're very troubled today about the quality of the conversation, and we should be. But we also have to recognize that conversations are messy. Democracies are messy. We are finally hearing voices we could never hear in society before, and that bothers us because it's messy. But that's democracy. That's what we're hearing. So because of this idea, I redefined journalism in my view. My view of journalism was always information-based. Now it's conversation-based. This is my new definition of journalism for my own good. That we convene communities into civil, informed, and productive conversation. Informed is still there, but we have a precondition now that we're not dealing with, which is to be civil with each other, to be dignified with each other, to be decent to each other, and to find out how to do that. If you hate your neighbor, you will not come to see your neighbor's view of the world. You will not come to be open to information. So we have to start with this notion of conversation, I think. This led us at CUNY, at my school, now named, I'm proud to say, the Craig Newmark Graduate School of Journalism, to invent a program we call social journalism, where we start with the conversation and the community, not the content. Content is still one tool we have. Storytelling is still one tool we have. But as you've heard, and as I've seen already here, there are so many more tools and more ways to do what we do in journalism. So a few examples of what I hope to work on. We start to build relationships with self-defined communities. By that I mean not bullshit like millennials, or in the United States, not bullshit like Hispanic. I have students who've come from Argentina who come to the US and say the first time I was ever called Hispanic was when I came here, because Anglos think anyone who speaks Spanish must all be the same. We don't recognize that. So self-defined communities, to listen to them. The first thing we have to do is listen, and listen first. We teach journalism students to come up with a story idea and pitch that. Give me a story a lot of people are going to like, because that's our old attention-based business model. In social journalism, we teach you to go and observe and listen to a community, reflect that community's needs back to them, and then and only then you can understand what journalism you need to bring. A few examples of this. Hearken, the wonderful company that enables the public to assign the journalists to news. Listening Post is another one that enables people to listen. There are some great projects happening here. But I think that you can invent all kinds of new ways in which we can listen to the public, in which the public can listen to each other. And we're just beginning to explore that in our field. Because the truth is, in journalism, we are shitty listeners. We think we have a story idea, and we go out, and then we start reporting, and let me get a quote from you, and a quote from you to fill in the story I already know. No, we have to start by listening. Next, we've got to build bridges. We've got to find ways to connect communities. Remember I said that it's our job to convene communities into civil, informed, and productive conversation. What the internet enables us to do is to find people like us. Dana Boyd talks about being an odd teenager out in her small town in Pennsylvania, and the internet allowed her to find out she wasn't alone. An LGBTQ teenager can find out they're not alone. An ethnic teenager stuck in the middle of America or somewhere else can find out they're not alone on the internet. It's a good thing to gather into our communities, and that's a fine thing to do. But then, we've got to move to the next step, which is to build bridges. Facebook lets you find people like you. Facebook lets you find people you know. How does Facebook find people you don't know? Few examples of this. Spaceship Media is a company I love. They, in their first experiment, went and a journalist interviewed 25 women who voted for Trump in Alabama, 25 who voted for Clinton in San Francisco, and then they threw them all into a Facebook group. And it started off okay, they talked about their kids and whatever else, but soon, vroom, it went down into hell. But then what happened, because there was a relationship built up between the journalist and these people, some of them came to the journalist and said, "Can you help us out over here? We're getting in trouble. Can you look up some stuff for us?" Well, my journalist friends, the heavens opened and the angels sang, because you had people who said, "We care about an informed conversation, and we trust you, journalists, to help us with that, and we trust facts." That is heaven. Deutschland spricht is a project of Die Zeit in Germany. They asked, I think, 12,000 people 5 questions, binary answers. Germany has too many migrants. Germany has room for more migrants. And then they asked people, are you willing to meet someone who disagrees with you? And on a Sunday, I think in June last year, they had these thousands of people who got matched up by an algorithm to someone who was near them who disagreed with them. And they went and met somewhere. And they just talked. They didn't exchange any minds, they just talked. And they tell me there were no fist fights and no murders. And it's a beautiful thing, and Die Zeit is now making this platform available around the world. It is an example of building bridges. Next, we have to encourage dignity. The other way I would say this is civility, but civility has been a word that's been taken over, just like the phrase fake news has been taken over and used. But we need to find ways in which we get along with each other. Now, I want to be very clear. Civility as a word is used to say, how dare you scold a Trumpist? I'm not saying that. Yascha Mounk, who's a political scientist at Harvard, when I told him that I was worried about the word civility, he said, don't give it up, Jeff. He said, you can be civil and you can still call out evil. Calling out evil is not uncivil. It's the right thing to do. It's what we should do in journalism. But nonetheless, we need to figure out how to be civil. Cortico is a lab at the MIT Media Lab that is doing wonderful work trying to understand our civility, to understand our conversation. And then there's a company called Civil that's in New York that's built on blockchain. I wish I could explain it to you, but it confuses the hell out of me. But it has a lot of very neat opportunities to put journalism on the blockchain. And what excites me most about it is the idea that you could use a currency to encourage certain behavior. So imagine you had a forum of people and you could reward the person who's the best peacemaker by helping give them a subscription, a currency for that. Next, we have to solve problems. It is not enough for us in journalists to go and talk about the things that are wrong with the world. We have to give the world ways to fix itself. And though I have no problem personally with thinking that journalism is advocacy, this is not necessarily advocacy. This just means that we give people the opportunity to see ways to solve their problems. There's a movement called solutions journalism in the US. There's one called constructive journalism in Denmark. They're a little bit different. Solutions journalism wants to give people just what they can do when they come to the story to find out what they can actually accomplish. Constructive journalism says that we in journalism have painted too negative, too frightful a picture of the world. We've got to fix that and change that. Next, we've got to create value. We've got to create business models. We've got to figure out how to build this new world. And it doesn't come, again, from just attention-based, CPM-based, mass media-based advertising. It's got to come from other means. And if paywalls aren't going to solve it all for us, what will? I was talking to somebody, believe it or not, from Facebook recently. We were talking about the notion that we could build business models on the basis of the skill of building relationships with community. We can bring along other people in doing that, and there's ways to do this. Patreon is a very interesting model in enabling the public to say, this is what matters to us, and we will pay to support it, like Kickstarter. Vidcon, has anyone here been to Vidcon? You heard of it, Vidcon? It's the YouTube fans conference. And I find it to be a fascinating place because there are 25,000 YouTube fans there. 3 floors next to Disneyland in the convention center. The first floor is 15,000 fans. The next floor is 5,000 creators. The top floor is 3,000 industry people. That means old white men like me who exploit everyone below. And I go to this session every year at Vidcon where the topic is mental health. And on the stage are 5 or 6 YouTubers who've talked very publicly about their depression or their anxiety or their eating disorder or their suicide or their addiction. They have shared with the world. But then in the room, just like this, there are 300 people, mostly young, majority young women, who share that. There's an empathy in the room that is thick. We don't see in media. You have people who stand up to the microphone and say to somebody on stage, you saved my life. You taught me I wasn't alone. You showed me a way to go forward. Is that journalism? I hope it can be. Finally, yes, I'm not suggesting that we give up the core of journalism, which is to investigate, investigate, investigate. After Donald Trump was elected, allegedly, in the United States, and again, I'm sorry, I called an Argentine journalist, and I said, what should we expect? Because we in America think everything happens first time to us. You, of course, here and in other countries in Latin America and South America have dealt with authoritarian regimes before. And she said, expect that, number 1, you are going to be cut out. Number 2, you are going to be attacked. And number 3, the only thing you can do is investigate, investigate, investigate. Margaret Sullivan, who's a media columnist of the Washington Post, wrote a piece the other day where I didn't think she even went far enough with the idea that we need to collaborate together as journalists to go after targets. We can't afford to all operate on our own anymore. We've got to work together. And so I want to plug my good friend Aaron Pilhofer's efforts at Document Cloud and Muckrock. And he's merging the two, and he's right over there, and you'll hear him tomorrow, and I urge you to talk to him about the ideas he has. So finally, I see many opportunities to rethink what we can do around journalism. I see many opportunities to build something more than just content and just storytelling that has real value. So here's a short list of things we can talk about tomorrow in the workshop. I think the most important thing we've got to do, most important thing journalism has to do and Facebook has to do, is make strangers less strange. The bad guys, the authoritarians, the Trumps, the Putins, all demonize the stranger, the person who comes over the border, who's going to steal your job and steal your money and steal your daughter and steal your culture. Bullshit. But unless people know this stranger, we're not going to get anywhere. Civility. I mentioned that before. I think we've got to help figure out how to reward responsible sharing. I'm delighted with the cacophony of democracy, with hearing all kinds of new voices. Those new voices are loud. They're trying to figure out how to operate in this world. And yeah, they're going to do things like I do and say fuck a lot. That doesn't mean society has fallen apart. But it does mean we've got to teach our young people, for example, to understand that when they share something, they're saying something about themselves and their friends and the internet and the society they want to build. What can we build to reward responsible sharing, not the kind of irresponsible sharing that we reward now because attention and traffic and clicks matter most? Bridge building I mentioned. News as a social token. This too comes from Vidcon. When I went to Vidcon, I saw, because I take my daughter with me, who's now a senior in college, and she taught me that when she shares something on YouTube, she's not saying, this is a piece of content I highly recommend. I give it 4 stars. You should spend 20 minutes watching it. No. When she shares something on Facebook, she says, this speaks for me. This speaks to you. It speaks about us. Or she makes fun of it. But all that does is enter into the conversation she is already having. We don't start conversations. We don't set agendas. We're not the gatekeepers. The conversation is already occurring. And we have to ask how we add journalism to that conversation and how we help people share journalism among themselves. Membership and contribution, I think, are critical models. It isn't just about subscription. It isn't just about buying access to content. If you look at the success of The Guardian, where both Aaron and I have had a friendly relationship for a long time, they are making success in begging for money. But they're begging for it because they're already doing good work. They're already giving the public something valuable. Commerce. We're running a group at my school now of industry people who are making money selling things to the public. That could be another form of advertising, but it actually has a different value of trust that works. And then personalization with permission. Having seen the presentation 2 before, I think there's a lot of opportunity in bringing us that. And then finally, one more that's not on the screen I'll mention is that I'm working on a project we haven't announced yet to try to aggregate the signals of quality in news so that we can help the platforms as well as advertisers and ad networks and ad agencies stop supporting the crap and start supporting the quality. The more systems you can come to try to figure out what are the indicators of quality. You have here Vidcon and the Credibility Coalition. Those folks, among many others, are working on this. So, I will end here and say that what I hope you do most, is to build a new journalism. Because we must survive, and because we can, because we have all kinds of new tools. And you, my friends, you are the people to do that. Muchísimas gracias.